Hello, Robin. My name is Kenny. Today I'm gonna talk about the business plan of the JetStar who wanna operate a non-stop flight from Melbourne to Hanoi. Okay, firstly, I'm gonna give you some information about the company background. JetStar is a subsidiary company of Qantas Group, which operates from Australia and New Zealand to 15 countries across Asia Pacific region. The company first established in 2004 and became one of the largest low-fare in the Asia Pacific. JetStar is currently operating over 4,000 flights per week to over 75 destinations in 17 countries across Asia Pacific region. The company is 70% owned by the Vietnam Airlines and 30% owned by the Qantas. Um, Now I'm gonna move to the next slide. Hang on a second, there's some technical problem. Okay, and now I'm gonna define a problem. I'm gonna give you some background to the problem. At the moment, the company has been operating a non-stop flight from Melbourne to Ho Chi Minh City. However, there is no non-stop flight from Melbourne to Hanoi. So this information indicates the existing business problem that can be the opportunity for JetStar to solve the business problem. And now I'm going to give you some secondary research finding. According to Aviation Administration of Vietnam, um, there were 18 million international travelers, including from Australia, came back to Vietnam in 2015. Also, it's estimated that the number of passengers from overseas will grow at 14.2% per annum in 2015 and 20, and increase to 10.2% and increase 10.2% by the end of 2030. In terms of the decision making, the manager decision problem is to identify whether there is a demand for JetStar to fly directly from Melbourne to Hanoi or not. Particularly, the related marketing research problem will object Vietnamese international students who are currently living in Melbourne. Now, when we clearly define the problem, now we have to looking for some approach to the problem. There are two approaches that gonna solve the problem. The research will firstly is the exploratory research. In this process, a focus group of 12 Vietnamese participants who are currently studying at Homeland. The objectives of this process are to identify the student behavior regarding to the question, collecting student feedback to improve for the survey question, and discuss the questions that are used for the surveys. The other approach is descriptive research. Sorry for my pronunciation. A marketing survey will require at least 30 participants who are Vietnamese students and living in Melbourne as well. The survey will include researcher friends in Melbourne and the Vietnamese Student Association in Melbourne as well. The primary objective of the research are to determine the Vietnamese student behavior about the new airline service and to estimate the likelihood percentage of the new non-stop flight and make a specific prediction to the success of the new non-stop flight. Now is the research design, which is step 3 in the business research. First, I'm going to talk about who, what, where, when, why, for what I'm doing for both approaches. Within exploratory research, the person I'm going to target is 12 Vietnamese students at Homeland. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to identify Vietnamese students thinking and their action they're doing. Where I'm going to do that, the process would be organized in Homeland cafeterias, and I was operated in 2nd to 16th October this year. And why I'm doing that? because I want to evaluate and understand how Vietnamese students need and think. And the second approach, the descriptive research, which is survey I'm going to do. Who I'm going to target to? I'm going to target to minimum 30 Vietnamese participants who are studying in Melbourne. What I'm going to do with them? I'm going to determine the characteristic of Vietnamese students regarding to the non-stop flight from Melbourne to Hanoi. Where I'm going to do that, the survey will be operated online with the help from the admin of Vietnamese Student Association in Melbourne and Vietnamese friend. Why I'm going to do that? Why I'm doing that? Because I want to seek for the opportunity of operating new service routes by estimating the percentage of the likelihood for purchasing from Vietnamese students, and furthermore, I want to understand the demand of the Vietnamese student at large in Melbourne. Okay, now I'm going to talk about some ethical issue which is related to the sixth step of the basic research. First thing, for the problem definition, there are three main categories that we must focus on. Researchers must take responsibility for their professional conduct and comply to the principle of fair competition. And the second one is researchers must not make false or otherwise misleading statements about their skill, experience, or activities. Researchers also must not criticize other researchers. For the second step, developing approach to the problem, there are four main elements that we need to focus on. Researchers must be truthful and objective and verify that their research is fulfilled in accordance with appropriate scientific research principles, methods, and techniques. The research must be legal and conform for all relevant legislation, including, in particular, Australian privacy principles. Researchers must understand that research projects are designed, established, reported, and documented accurately, transparency, and objectively. Researchers also must understand that findings and any interpretation of them are comprehensively and reasonably supported by the data. For step 3, research design, there are three main elements. The research will not involve participants who are under 18. Only Vietnamese students who are over 18 are suitable for the research. Second one is all participant collaboration must entirely volunteer at all stages in a research project. Researchers must not deceive participants when asking for their participation. Researchers must identify themselves and then the purpose of the process of the research. The next step is fieldwork and data collection. So all participants must be informed about research, as well as requiring a short training for the admin of the association of how the research will be carried out. The research question will only focus on the primary object of the research, which is there any demand to fly directly from Melbourne to Hanoi? Next, collecting and analysis data. All collecting data should be designed, conducted, and reported in a manner that respects to the right, privacy, dignity, and entitlements of those affected by and contributing to the evaluation. All the analysis should be reported with a fairness and balanced response to the term of reference for the audience. Preparing a presentation to a report, there are three main dimensions. Ensure participant identify cannot be inferred by deductive disclosure. Ensure the research project will be established by themselves or their companies. The research must be provided with appropriate methodology, details, and that are carried out in research. Okay. I'm gonna talk about what I'm gonna do in a few words, and then data collection. From the researcher would firstly organize a focus group that are including 2 groups of 8 in each. They are Vietnamese student homeland, of course, and researcher will interview face-to-face with a list of a questionnaire regarding to the primary question and the feedback. The main thing of this activity is to collect the feedback and the answer from the focus group, which is used to develop survey questions later. Secondly, researcher will use eSurvey.organization to organize a set of 16 survey questionnaires and launch the website link to the Vietnamese brand of researcher as well as the Vietnamese Student Association in Melbourne. The thing is, I'm gonna give a short training for the admin of the page on Facebook, because he gonna help me to control the information and how to get the thing done in a way that it should be professional and ethical. For the data analysis, to analyze the research data, I'm gonna carry out the use of frequency distribution and a cross tabulation in SPSS to quantitatively analyze the relationship between multiple variables. Why I'm doing that? Because it's easy to intercept and eliminate the confusion from the audience. It's also clarifying a strong link between and results and the action. Between the result and the action. Provide numerical insight than frequency distribution. It also can combine cells and remove the empty or space cells. And it's simple to conduct. Okay. Talk about the result. What I have found. First, there were 20 Vietnamese students, about roughly 67% of the total, intended to travel to Hanoi in the next 3 years, whereas 30% of students had no plan, and 20% of students might travel back to Hanoi. Particularly, most students decide to purchase the ticket between 1 and 2 months before their flight, whereas 27% of students admitted their purchase decision were made 3 or 4 months before the flight, and only 23% of students would purchase the ticket 5 to 6 months before the flight. Okay, now we're talking about the previous flight habit versus the price purchase. According to the graph, 57% of Vietnamese students have fly back to Hanoi once for the last 2 years, and 20% of them went back 3 times in the same period. Particularly, most students spend around $500 to near $1,000 for their ticket, compared to other students. They spend roughly $100 to $499 per ticket. Meanwhile, 17% of Vietnamese students travel back to Vietnam twice, and 7% either did not go back or go back more than 3 times. However, all of them spend from $1,000 up to nearly $2,000 for their own ticket. Now I'm gonna talk about their occupation and when they decide to go back. Most of students, 67%, that their occupation to travel back to Hanoi was their leisure. Particularly, 10 students responded that they went back at the end of the semester, and 7 students which is the second largest portion, was going back in Lunar New Year. Meanwhile, 23% of student occupation are both leisure and business, and 7% of students went back for business, but all of them went back in Lunar New Year. Choosing airline. According to the result, Vietnam Airlines is the winner in the competition between Melbourne to Hanoi with 43% rate, and followed by Singapore Airlines 17%, and then JetStar. The lowest one is belongs to AirAsia and Scoot Airlines, which is 7% of each. Now, I'm gonna talk about a favorite airline and unfavorite airline. According to the graph, Singapore Airlines is the most favorite airline that Vietnamese students choose to fly before. The second highest rate was Vietnam Airlines with 23%. The lowest one in this table is JetStar and Scoot with 3% of each. In this report, there are also indicators talk the reason why Vietnamese students choose to be the worst airline. First, they admitted the customer service is the most important thing that students use to evaluate an airline with 35%, and then followed by the food service with 80%. The Vietnamese students also informed that long hour transit and delay were the main reason, other reason that could explain the worst airline. Other evaluations were airplane, the interior, the ticket flexibility, and the seat play, with 6% of each. In the bottom line, the digital revolution have been set play for many years. As a result, most of Vietnamese students purchase air tickets through online, with 63%, and only 37% of Vietnamese students decide to purchase their tickets through travel agency. The likelihood to fly with JetStar, if JetStar operate a non-stop flight from Melbourne to Hanoi, that's the question I was asking the participant. Surprisingly, 74% of Vietnamese students will choose to fly with JetStar if they operate that route, and only 20% were unsure about that decision. Meanwhile, only 7% of students were not likely to choose JetStar. Talk about limitation, and I'm going to talk about limitation. There are a number of limitations in this research. Firstly, the number of respondents is limited by 30 participants, and most of respondents are the researcher friends and Vietnamese students in the association. There's a number of students who live in Melbourne did not participate in, and also the students who in the association but they did not participate. Secondly, is that timing and budgets are another limitation for research. The research did not have enough time to collect more research information. There was no budget for the research as well. So the research was based on participant voluntary. Therefore, research results do not fully describe and answer the problem definition accurately. Managers must be either carefully consider or do not rely on the outcome of the research. Now I'm going to talk about conclusion and recommendation. Despite some limitation, this report indicated that the success of JetStar if operating a non-stop flight from Melbourne to Hanoi is positive. Based on its highest response, 74% of students choose to fly with them. Moreover, most Vietnamese students choose online platform to purchase the ticket for their most occupation to travel back to Vietnam with leisure. Which means the manager should be recommended to target to spend more, to invest more money online and focus on the particular season, just such as the end of student semester and Lunar New Year. Um, um, on the other hand, some other thing that the manager that report recommend the manager in terms of their decision making is to focus on safety standard, the loyalty program, and reasonable price were the most important element that Vietnamese students consider when choosing an airline. Moreover, the report recommends JetStar to concentrate on customer services and food service in order to attract Vietnamese students on board. And lastly is my reference. Thank you, Robin, for listening to my presentation. Cheers.